Outcomes. CompTIA is a not-for-profit trade association with the purpose of advancing the interests of IT professionals and IT channel organizations. Its industry-leading IT certifications are an important part of that mission. CompTIA Security Plus certification is a global certification that validates the foundational cybersecurity skills necessary to perform core security functions and pursue an IT security career. This course can benefit you in two ways. If you intend to pass the CompTIA Security Plus Exam SY0-701 certification examination, this course can be a significant part of your preparation. But certification is not the only key to professional success in the field of IT security. Today's job market demands individuals with demonstrable skills, and the information and activities in this course can help you build your cybersecurity skill set so that you can confidently perform your duties in any entry-level security role. On course completion, you will be able to do the following: summarize fundamental security concepts, compare threat types, explain appropriate cryptographic solutions, implement identity and access management, secure enterprise network architecture, secure cloud network architecture, explain resiliency and site security concepts, explain vulnerability management, evaluate network security capabilities, assess endpoint security capabilities, enhance application security capabilities, explain incident response and monitoring concepts, analyze indicators of malicious activity, summarize security governance concepts, explain risk management processes, summarize data protection and compliance concepts.
When it comes to the world of cybersecurity, there are a lot of kind of continents available in that world. In other words, there are a lot of different jobs within the realm of cybersecurity. To tell us more about that, we've got Brian Culkin. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, James. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Brian Culkin is the Chief Technology Officer for CyberWA. And Brian, tell us a bit more about CyberWA yourself. Let's start talking about the world of cybersecurity jobs that are available to folks.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been in cybersecurity now for going on 20 years, various roles over the years I've had, to include all the way from a SOC analyst to a person that has built SOCs, run SOCs, led incident response teams, various management roles, executive roles. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer for a company called CyberWA, where we are offering cyber protective services for high net worth individuals and celebrities.
So, when it comes to putting a security operations center together, more importantly, you have to have workers that at various tiers, various levels. Is a security operations center analyst, a SOC analyst, a good first cybersecurity job?
I'd actually argue it's the best first cybersecurity job, and I can stand by that pretty strongly. Having been one and having hired many and managed many of them over the years, I think that as folks are getting started in cybersecurity, and they're maybe not exactly sure where their passions might lie, whether they want to dive into penetration testing or vulnerability assessments or incident response, I think that you get enough exposure to each of those various individual sort of work items. With being a SOC analyst, you just get this broad experience that you can apply later on in your career.
I've known quite a few beginning SOC analysts. They basically take tickets, as it were, oftentimes, right? And then they determine if they can handle it themselves, if it really is a big thing, and then escalate it. Is that, in general terms, what you're going to do with that particular job role?
Absolutely, yeah. So generally, the way it works is we will hire somebody, either straight out of college or maybe new to cybersecurity in general, as what we call an entry level or a tier one analyst. So these are the folks that are getting the broadest experience in handling most of the, if not all, of the inbound requests from customers, whether they be internal customers to your organization or external customers if you're running an external shop. But yeah, fielding emails, fielding phone calls, and running down things like requests for analysis or requests for assistance. And then, yeah, if they get into a bind or a tough spot where they sort of hit the limits of what they know and can do, then they would escalate up to the tier two analyst.
there are other job roles out there, pen tester, for example, or security administrator. Let's talk about a couple of those real quick.
Yeah, sure. Those are always popular too, and folks they like the pen testing roles, security admin roles, security engineer roles. So, for instance, a penetration tester would be somebody that is identifying vulnerabilities in a system or a network or network perimeter, and then trying to put on the role of the hacker or the black hat, and then try to exploit those vulnerabilities to try to get in. And the purpose, of course, is to let the organization know they found this vulnerability and they were able to exploit it. Versus a security engineer would be, so if a pen tester is playing offense, the engineer would be playing defense. And the security engineer is preparing those systems to be as secure as possible as they're being deployed. Think, deploying a new server and hardening it per best practice or per recommendations in order to make it as resilient as possible to a cyber attack.
Additional job roles can include things like help desk analyst and or like vulnerability manager, things like that. But tell me a bit more about some of those.
Yeah, sure. Vulnerability assessment and vulnerability manager is another really popular one that I've worked with a number of those folks over the years. So these are the folks that are essentially doing things like or could include running vulnerability scans, looking at various vulnerabilities that an organization might have within their environment, and then assessing, what is the impact? Should this vulnerability get exploited? Making sure the vulnerability can be patched if it maybe can't be patched, and what else they could do to help mitigate the vulnerability. Is there some other mitigating factor in play they could apply to kind of close that hole, if you will.
Brian, thank you so much for talking about just a few of the many job roles that are available within cybersecurity. Sure appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, James.
Learn. CertMaster Learn uses a learning plan, a single comprehensive learning pathway comprised of individual study tasks. To complete the course, follow these steps. Set a goal completion date in the masthead. Go through each study task, reading and watching all lesson content. For each study task, truthfully mark your confidence on each lesson. It's okay if you don't know something. Marking confidence helps categorize content for future review. You can also bookmark or add your own notes to each lesson page. Complete the review activity, performance-based question, PBQ, or lab activity, if applicable, to gauge your understanding of the various topics. Take the end-of-lesson practice questions to evaluate what you learned in that lesson. Once you've completed all the learning plan study tasks, take the final assessment, which is a timed practice exam across all topics. Additional learning features. Some features are outside of the learning plan and can be used whenever you like to brush up on core concepts. Flashcards, quick reference flip cards for memorizing key terms and concepts. Game Center, a variety of matching style games to help you memorize key terms and concepts. Need help? Click the support link in the bottom left corner for more support guides. If you still need help, you can visit help.comptia.org. Lesson Introduction. Security is an ongoing process that includes assessing requirements, setting up organizational security systems, hardening and monitoring those systems, responding to attacks in progress, and deterring attackers. If you can summarize the fundamental concepts that underpin security functions, you can contribute more effectively to a security team. You must also be able to explain the importance of compliance factors and best practice frameworks in driving the selection of security controls and how departments, units, and professional roles within different types of organizations implement the security function. Lesson objectives. In this lesson, you will do the following. Summarize information security concepts. Compare and contrast security control types. Describe security roles and responsibilities. Rate your confidence. Continue. Covered. 1.2 Summarize fundamental security concepts. To be successful and credible as a security professional, you should understand security in business starting from the ground up. You should know the key security terms and ideas used by security experts in technical documents and trade publications. Security implementations are constructed from fundamental building blocks, just like a large building is built from individual bricks. This topic will help you understand those building blocks so that you can use them as the foundation for your security career. Information security, in FOSSEC, refers to the protection of data resources from unauthorized access, attack, theft, or damage. Data may be vulnerable because of the way it is stored, transferred, or processed. The systems used to store, transmit, and process data must demonstrate the properties of security. Secure information has three properties, often referred to as the CIA triad. Confidentiality means that information can only be read by people who have been explicitly authorized to access it. Integrity means that the data is stored and transferred as intended, and any modification is unauthorized unless explicitly authorized through proper channels. Availability means that information is readily accessible to those authorized to view or modify it. The triad can also be referred to as AIC to avoid confusion with the Central Intelligence Agency. Some security models and researchers identify other properties of secure systems. The most important of these is non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means that a person cannot deny doing something, such as creating, modifying, or sending a resource. For example, a legal document, such as a will, must usually be witnessed when it is signed. If there is a dispute about whether the document was correctly executed, the witness can provide evidence that it was. Security framework. Within the goal of ensuring information security, cybersecurity refers specifically to provisioning secure processing hardware and software. Information security and cybersecurity tasks can be classified as 5 functions, following the framework developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, gov/cyberframework/online-learning/5-functions. Identify, develop security policies and capabilities. Evaluate risks, threats, and vulnerabilities and recommend security controls to mitigate them. Protect, procure/develop, install, operate, and decommission IT hardware and software assets with security as an embedded requirement of every stage of this operations lifecycle. Detect, perform ongoing, proactive monitoring to ensure that controls are effective and capable of protecting against new types of threats. Respond, identify, analyze, contain, and eradicate threats to systems and data security. Recover, implement cybersecurity resilience to restore systems and data if other controls are unable to prevent attacks. Description. From the top, the functions divided into 3 levels are as follows: identify, protect and detect, respond, and recover. In the internal line of threats, activities take place from detection of attacks, from identification to protection, and from respond and recovery to protection. Feedback acts from detection and responding to the identification. Defense to the attacks from the threats works at the identification level, in the external line of threats. Core cybersecurity tasks. NIST. Each security function is associated with a number of goals or outcomes. For example, one outcome of the identify function is an inventory of the assets owned and operated by the company. Outcomes are achieved by implementing one or more security controls. Numerous categories and types of security controls cover a huge range of functions. This makes selection of appropriate and effective controls difficult. A cybersecurity framework guides the selection and configuration of controls. Frameworks are important because they save an organization from building its security program in a vacuum, or from building the program on a foundation that fails to account for important security concepts. The use of a framework allows an organization to make an objective statement of its current cybersecurity capabilities, identify a target level of capability, and prioritize investments to achieve that target. This gives a structure to internal risk management procedures and provides an externally verifiable statement of regulatory compliance. Gap analysis is a process that identifies how an organization's security systems deviate from those required or recommended by a framework. This will be performed when first adopting a framework or when meeting a new industry or legal compliance requirement. The analysis might be repeated every few years to meet compliance requirements or to validate any changes that have been made to the framework. For each section of the framework, a gap analysis report will provide an overall score, a detailed list of missing or poorly configured controls associated with that section, and recommendations for remediation. Description. The column heads are function, controls, actual/required, CIA triad risk levels, and target remediation. The function identify, 10/16, has intermediate capability. Its three controls, along with their capabilities, CIA triad risk levels, and target remediation are as follows. Asset management for sixth intermediate capability, C. 6I, 6A, 6. Q4 governance, 3/4 intermediate capability, C. 6I, 6A1. Q3 risk assessment, 3/6 no/basic capability, C. 6I, 6A3. Q3 the function, protect, 8/16 has no/basic capability. Its two controls, along with their capabilities, CIA triad risk levels, and target remediation are as follows. Identity and access management, 5/8 intermediate capability, C. 9I, 9A4, Q1 data security, 3/8 no/basic capability, C. 9I, 9A4, Q1. Summary of gap analysis findings showing number of recommended controls not implemented per function and category, plus risks to confidentiality, integrity, and availability from missing controls, and target remediation date. While some or all work involved in gap analysis could be performed by the internal security team, a gap analysis is likely to involve third-party consultants. Frameworks and compliance requirements from regulations and legislation can be complex enough to require a specialist. Advice and feedback from an external party can alert the internal security team to oversights and to new trends and changes in best practice. Control. An access control system ensures that an information system meets the goals of the CIA triad. Access control governs how subjects/principals may interact with objects. Subjects are people, devices, software processes, or any other system that can request and be granted access to a resource. Objects are the resources. An object could be a network, server, database, app, or file. Subjects are assigned rights or permissions on resources. Modern access control is typically implemented as an identity and access management (IAM) system. IAM comprises four main processes. Identification, creating an account or ID that uniquely represents the user, device, or process on the network. Authentication, proving that a subject is who or what it claims to be when it attempts to access the resource. An authentication factor determines what sort of credential the subject can use. For example, people might be authenticated by providing a password. A computer system could be authenticated using a token such as a digital certificate. Authorization, determining what rights subjects should have on each resource and enforcing those rights. An authorization model determines how these rights are granted. For example, in a discretionary model, the object owner can allocate rights. In a mandatory model, rights are predetermined by system-enforced rules and cannot be changed by any user within the system. Accounting, tracking authorized usage of a resource or use of rights by a subject and alerting when unauthorized use is detected or attempted.
Description.
The processes are as follows. 1. Identification. The system owner confirms the user's identity and creates an account to represent the user. 2. Authentication. The user authenticates by entering the credential and comparing it to the hashed credential. 3. Authorization. For each action the account performs, a permission list is checked to allow or deny the action. The actions may include reading or writing. The list checked is Access Control List, ACL. 4. Accounting. The system tracks permission usage in a log. The user cannot prevent this auditing. Differences among identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Images copyright 123rf.com. The servers and protocols that implement these functions can also be referred to as authentication, authorization, and accounting, AAA. The use of IAM to describe enterprise security workflows is becoming more prevalent as the importance of the identification process is better acknowledged. For example, if you are setting up an e-commerce site and want to enroll users, you need to select the appropriate controls to perform each function. Identification. Ensure that customers are legitimate. For example, you might need to ensure that billing and delivery addresses match and that they are not trying to use fraudulent payment methods. Authentication. Ensure that customers have unique accounts and that only they can manage their orders and billing information. Authorization. Rules to ensure customers can place orders only when they have valid payment mechanisms in place. You might operate loyalty schemes or promotions that authorize certain customers to view unique offers or content. Accounting. The system must record the actions a customer takes to ensure that they cannot deny placing an order, for instance. Remember that these processes apply both to people and to systems. For example, you need to ensure that your e-commerce server can authenticate its identity when customers connect to it using a web browser. Rate your confidence. Finish task.
Category.
Exam objectives covered. 1.1 Compare and contrast various types of security controls. Information security and cybersecurity assurance is met by implementing security controls. By identifying basic security control types, you will be better prepared to select and implement the most appropriate controls for a given scenario. You should also be able to describe how specific job roles and organizational structures can implement a comprehensive security program for organizations. Control categories. Information and cybersecurity assurance usually takes place within an overall process of business risk management. Implementation of cybersecurity functions is often the responsibility of the IT department. There are many different ways of thinking about how IT services should be governed to fulfill overall business needs. Some organizations have developed IT service frameworks to provide best practice guides to implementing IT and cybersecurity. These frameworks can shape company policies and provide checklists of procedures, activities, and technologies that represent best practice. Collectively, these procedures, activities, and tools can be referred to as security controls. A security control is designed to give a system or data asset the properties of confidentiality, integrity, availability, and non-repudiation. Controls can be divided into 4 broad categories based on the way the control is implemented. Managerial, the control gives oversight of the information system. Examples could include risk identification or a tool allowing the evaluation and selection of other security controls. Operational, the control is implemented primarily by people. For example, security guards and training programs are operational controls. Technical, the control is implemented as a system, hardware, software, or firmware. For example, firewalls, antivirus software, and OS access control models are technical controls. Physical, controls such as security cameras, alarms, gateways, locks, lighting, and security guards that deter and detect access to premises and hardware are often placed in a separate category from technical controls. Categories of security controls. Although it uses a different scheme, Be aware of the way the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, classifies security controls, https://CSRC. NIST gov/pub/sp/800/53/r5/upd1/final. Rate your confidence. Continue. Category. Topic 1B. Security controls. Report content errors. Copyright CompTIA Incorporated. All rights reserved. Terms of use privacy statement trademarks. All functional types. As well as a category, a security control can be defined according to the goal or function it performs. Preventive, the control acts to eliminate or reduce the likelihood that an attack can succeed. A preventive control operates before an attack can take place. Access control lists, ACL, configured on firewalls and file system objects are preventive type technical controls. Anti-malware software acts as a preventive control by blocking malicious processes from executing. Detective, the control may not prevent or deter access, but it will identify and record an attempted or successful intrusion. A detective control operates during an attack. Logs provide one of the best examples of detective-type controls. Corrective, the control eliminates or reduces the impact of a security policy violation. A corrective control is used after an attack. A good example is a backup system that restores data that was damaged during an intrusion. Another example is a patch management system that eliminates the vulnerability exploited during the attack. While most controls can be classed functionally as preventive, detective, or corrective, a few other types can be used to define other cases. Directive, the control enforces a rule of behavior such as a policy, best practice standard, or standard operating procedure, SOP. For example, an employee's contract will set out disciplinary procedures or causes for dismissal if they do not comply with policies and procedures. Training and awareness programs can also be considered as directive controls. Deterrent, the control may not physically or logically prevent access, but it psychologically discourages an attacker from attempting an intrusion. This could include signs and warnings of legal penalties against trespass or intrusion. Compensating, the control is a substitute for a principal control as recommended by a security standard and affords the same or better level of protection but uses a different methodology or technology. Description. At the time of intrusion attempt, preventive security control precedes an event and attempts to block it. Detective security control operates during an event to identify it, and corrective security control mitigates following an event. Other control functional types are directive, deterrent, and compensating. Functional types of security controls. Images, confirmation, security roles, and responsibilities. A security policy is a formalized statement that defines how security will be implemented within an organization. It describes the means the organization will take to protect the confidentiality, availability, and integrity of sensitive data and resources. The implementation of a security policy to support the goals of the CIA triad might be very different for a school, a multinational accountancy firm, or a machine tool manufacturer. However, each of these organizations, or any other organization, in any sector of the economy, whether profit-making or non-profit-making, should have the same interest in ensuring that its employees, equipment, and data are secure against attack or damage. An organization that develops security policies and uses framework-based security controls has a strong security posture. As part of the process of adopting an effective organizational security posture, employees must be aware of their responsibilities. The structure of security responsibilities will depend on the size and hierarchy of an organization, but these roles are typical. Overall responsibility for the IT function lies with a Chief Information Officer, CIO. This role might also have direct responsibility for security. Some organizations will also appoint a Chief Technology Officer, CTO, with more specific responsibility for ensuring effective use of new and emerging IT products and solutions to achieve business goals. In larger organizations, internal responsibility for security might be allocated to a dedicated department, run by a Chief Security Officer, CSO, or Chief Information Security Officer, CISO. Managers may have responsibility for a domain, such as building control, web services, or accounting. Technical and specialist staff have responsibility for implementing, maintaining, and monitoring the policy. Security might be made of a core competency of systems and network administrators, or there may be dedicated security administrators. One such job title is Information Systems Security Officer, ISSO. Non-technical staff have the responsibility of complying with policy and with any relevant legislation. External responsibility for security, due care or liability, lies mainly with directors or owners, though again it is important to note that all employees share some measure of responsibility. NIST's National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NICE, categorizes job tasks and job roles within the cybersecurity industry, NIST security competencies. IT professionals working in a role with security responsibilities must be competent in a wide range of disciplines, from network and application design to procurement and human resources, HR. The following activities might be typical of such a role. Participate in risk assessments and testing of security systems and make recommendations. Specify, source, install, and configure secure devices and software. Set up and maintain document access control and user privilege profiles. Monitor audit logs, review user privileges and document access controls. Manage security-related incident response and reporting. Create and test business continuity and disaster recovery plans and procedures. Participate in security training and education programs. Rate your confidence. Continue. Category. Topic 1B. Security controls. Report content errors. Copyright CompTIA Incorporated. All rights reserved. Terms of use. The following units are often used to represent the security function within the organizational hierarchy. Security Operations Center, SOC. A Security Operations Center, SOC, is a location where security professionals monitor and protect critical information assets across other business functions, such as finance, operations, sales/marketing, and so on. Because SOCs can be difficult to establish, maintain, and finance, they are usually employed by larger corporations, like a government agency or a healthcare company. A Security Operations Center, SOC, provides resources and personnel to implement rapid incident detection and response, plus oversight of cybersecurity operations. Image copyright Gorodenkopf 123rf.com. DevSecOps. Network operations and use of cloud computing make ever-increasing use of automation through software code. Traditionally, software code would be the responsibility of a programming or development team. Separate development and operations departments or teams can lead to silos, where each team does not work effectively with the other. Development and operations, DevOps, is a cultural shift within an organization to encourage much more collaboration between developers and systems administrators. By creating a highly orchestrated environment, IT personnel and developers can build, test, and release software faster and more reliably. DevSecOps extends the boundary to security specialists and personnel, reflecting the principle that security is a primary consideration at every stage of software development and deployment. This is also known as shift left, meaning that security considerations need to be made during requirements and planning phases, not grafted on at the end. The principle of DevSecOps recognizes this and shows that security expertise must be embedded into any development project. Ancillary to this is the recognition that security operations can be conceived of as software development projects. Security tools can be automated through code. Consequently, security operations need to take on developer expertise to improve detection and monitoring. Incident response. A dedicated computer incident response team, CRT/Computer Security Incident Response Team, CERT/Computer Emergency Response Team, CERT, is a single point of contact for the notification of security incidents. This function might be handled by the SOC, or it might be established as an independent business unit. You should be able to compare and contrast security controls using categories and functional types. You should also be able to explain how general security concepts and frameworks are used to develop and validate security policies and control selection. Guidelines for summarizing security concepts and security controls. Follow these guidelines when you assess the use of security controls and frameworks in your organization. Create a security mission statement and supporting policies that emphasize the importance of the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability. Assign roles so that security tasks and responsibilities are clearly understood and that impacts to security are assessed and mitigated across the organization. Consider creating business units, departments, or projects to support the security function, such as SOC, CIRT, and DevSecOps. Identify and assess the laws and industry regulations that impose compliance requirements on your business. Select a framework that meets your organization's compliance requirements and business needs. Create a matrix of security controls that are currently in place to identify categories and functions. Consider deploying additional controls for any unmatched capabilities. Perform a gap analysis to evaluate security capabilities against framework requirements and identify goals for developing additional cybersecurity competencies and improving overall information security assurance.